Amen. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope everyone's had a great 4th of July holiday. And I don't know if you know this, but in that same week, Canadians celebrated their Canada Day, July 1st. So my family, being Canadian and part American, got to celebrate 2 holidays in 1 week, which is really exciting. We have special guests here. I'd like to introduce that have come, a family that's come from Milwaukee. This is a couple that my wife and I have known for many years, over 10 years, and they served with us in the Milwaukee church as zone leaders. They are part of the core leadership, and Melvin, the husband, leads and father leads the purity ministry in the Milwaukee church. So they came here all the way from Wisconsin, so we're really excited to have them. We're going to have them and their 3 daughters all standing up. So this is the Roman family. Melvin, Emily, and Isabel. So we're really excited to have them. The oldest 2 are part of the campus ministry, and Isabel part of the teen ministry out in Milwaukee. So we're really excited to have you guys. And I'm actually going to have them come share a little bit later. So, anyways, we're starting a new series this month, and so and what I want to talk about is light, and this idea that as followers of Jesus Christ, our lives ought to be a light. They ought to stand out. And I think when we are accurately and devotedly following Jesus, our lives do stand out. And they stand out in a good way, not in a weird way, not in a bad way, but in a way that is compelling to people that see it. I think about, you think of examples in the scriptures, in the book of Acts. They persecuted the apostles, they tortured them. The Bible says that they left rejoicing because they had been counted worthy to suffer disgrace for the name. Hebrews 11, it refers to some of the great men and women of faith and how they joyfully accepted the confiscation of their property, or that sacrifice to them was a joyful thing. Paul writes in Thessalonians, he said, as followers of Jesus Christ, we don't grieve like the rest of people do when people pass away. And though we do grieve, it's a different type of grieving. And earlier this year, we had one of our sisters, Anna Flowers, pass away. And if you attended the funeral, it was a true celebration. I mean, people were crying, but we were crying tears of joy as we were remembering her devotion and her faith and her real encouragement. I think about disciples showing forgiveness. A couple years ago, I had a sister come from the Chicago church, a sister named Erin Rollins, who shared her testimony about how she had been in the hospital and inflicted by a car crash, and how her journey was not just recovering, but forgiving the drunk driver, and bringing healing to that person's life as well. And these things stand out like a light. And light has many qualities. It brings healing, it reveals, it illuminates, and we're called to be a light. Jesus called us to let our lights shine. We've all sung the song, "This Little Light of Mine." But what it means is that you and I, one of the things that we're called to be is to be a light. That we're not supposed to just go to work and blend in and be really quiet. Sure. We're not supposed to just go in your neighborhood and go, okay, I hope nobody notices me. Okay, bye, I gotta get out of here and be that. That you're actually called to be a light. You're called to be a source that illuminates darkness in people's lives. As darkness can't exist in the presence of light, that it should not exist in the presence of a disciple of Christ. So I look at this passage, it said, Paul writes, "For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of the light." So once again, Jesus tells us to do this, but Paul also writes, "Hey, live as children of the light." And so the question obviously is how? How do we do that? I think it's one thing to use phraseology and to admonish people. It's we can default to some sort of religious rhetoric like, do it for the Lord. But of course, we've got to ask ourselves, how do we do that? How do I take us who are sinners, and how do I help my marriage to shine like a light when, it's 2 selfish people living together? And how does my family shine like a light? And how ought our friendships shine like a light. Well, luckily, and the great thing about the scriptures is they don't just tell us to do things, they tell us how to do things.
Right.
So in that same chapter in Ephesians, it says, it's shameful, it's talking about the darkness, even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. Okay? I think here's a simple allusion or reference to sin, right? And again, let's not talk to the depth of that. We all get sin. We don't need to spell it out. But it says everything exposed by the light becomes visible. And everything that is illuminated becomes a light. So I like this phrase here, that everything that's illuminated becomes a light. And so that means that when you let God reveal what's really going on, you become a light for God. Yeah. And the reason why that is because when I tell you, if I stand here and try to be awesome, you go, oh, my guys might be awesome. I might fool some of you into thinking that I'm awesome. But on the other hand, if I just tell you, hey, I'm just a guy, I sin, I struggle with selfishness, and I'm incredibly insecure, and I struggle with lust, and I've lied to my wife before, then all of a sudden, everything that comes out of me that's good, you know it's not me.
Sure.
You know it must be God.
Right.
So how is God holding this guy's life together? How is he doing such a miracle? How is he blessing their marriage when he's such a failure? And then you all of a sudden go, oh, well, that must be God. And so I've asked a couple here to come up and share their testimony all the way from Milwaukee. I'm going to have Melvin and Wanda come on up here. So this is kind of what we call a little serve interview. Check. There you go. You guys can speak into that. All right. And Melvin and Wanda. So I want to start off by saying Melvin and Wanda have been disciples for over 30 years, 34, 35 years. Melvin was converted as a teen.
Yes.
And he has 3 daughters. So I guess my first question is, I have 3 sons. So I have no idea what it's like to have daughters. So what does it mean, Melvin, first of all, to have 3 daughters? I've always wanted to ask this.
Well, 3 daughters requires a lot of listening.
Yes.
A lot of listening. One thing I learned a long time ago from listening to this awesome brother by the name of Gordon Ferguson was that he would sometimes tell his wife, Teresa, hey, can you give me the boy version? Yes. When she's explaining something. So I learned to use that with my daughters. So sometimes, depending on what's going on, they'll say, Dad, I want to just give you the boy version. Or sometimes they'll say, I want to give you the girl version. So that means I have to sit and listen a lot.
Right. So sometimes with his daughters, he says, you know what, and just for brevity's sake, you have to ask them for the boy version.
Yeah.
I want to say that as a father of 3 boys, I've never asked for the girl version.
You would be in trouble if you had to.
Yes, absolutely. So, let's start off with this. Can you tell us about how you guys became Christians?
Okay. So I was 17 years old. I grew up going to church a lot with my family, but my brother had become a Christian back in Boston. Then my sister became a Christian. I was amazed at their transformation. Even though they went to church, we grew up going to church all the time. There was something different about them. And the difference was that they actually started putting the Bible into practice in their lives. They were actually reading and studying the scriptures. They became students of the Bible. So that blew my mind. My sister and I were not getting along at the time. She came back to Milwaukee. She was only there on vacation and came back as a Christian. She came and shared with me, and I was amazed at her transformation. And I said, I don't know what it is you have, but I want what you have. So I came back to school as a different student, and there was an amazing transformation. I started Bible talks in high school. I started reaching out to other people. I was considered one of the popular kids in high school. Unfortunately, not for a lot of good things either. But a lot of people seeing how much, students in high school, seeing how much I changed. And they were blown away by my transformation and the amount of respect I gained from them. I didn't really care what they thought of me. All I cared about was loving God. And then, while sharing my faith, I shared my faith with this beautiful young lady over here.
I knew that he wasn't
a good kind of boy. I knew he was a crazy kind of boy. So when he invited me to church, I didn't believe him. But I said, yes, I'll go. And I told my cousin, I'll believe it when I see it. And then we went to a teens class at church, and I was really impressed that he was sharing, and he was a different person than what I knew in high school. So I also grew up religious. I was 15 when he had reached out to me. His sisters studied the Bible with me and some other sisters, and he got to baptize me. And it's been 33 years.
So I actually brought you here. One of the things I wanted you guys to share was, and something that certainly, if you're an older disciple, it's important for us to hear, and certainly even if you're younger, is part of our dark times. And I think, being a light, I think means, unfortunately for us, is being able to stand out during those dark times and those valleys. So I was wondering if you guys could share about, since that 34 years, obviously, it's not just all, blue skies and rainbows, but there are some really dark times in your faith, and I was wondering if you guys could share about your dark time.
So under the idea that, Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. We've been married for 28 years. We've known each other for about 35 years. So what I'm going to do is hand the mic over to Wanda, and then I will respond to what she's going to share.
Back in September of 2019 was one of my darker moments as a disciple. I was helping my children. 2010.
She's not nervous.
I was helping my children with schoolwork on the computer, and all of a sudden, the web page came up, the web history, and it showed all these inappropriate websites, and I thought, what is this? Satan really wants me to be angry with my husband, and I'm trying to, keep the peace. So after doing a little research, I was able to find out that, some things had been going on in our marriage, and that he was hiding his sin. And I wrote down some questions. I wrote down questions. I was ready to, ask him about these things. When I confronted him, he denied it all, and I told him I had the proof. I wasn't prepared for that day, but I did know that God is always with me. So I felt like, okay, we need to get help, and no matter how bad this may be, and trust that God's going to make a way with it all. And at that point, we did get with a couple, and I had told Melvin, I said, we're either going to get help, or I don't. This is not the marriage I intended to have as a disciple. So.
Yeah. So that was an interesting day. So what we may consider or think of as a, like Mark says, hey, what was this darkest day was in reality the best day of my life. So for those of us that think we have secrets, we really don't have any secrets. And those secrets can only last for a short time in your life. But God exposes that. Amen. And he has an incredible way of doing that. And God used my wife to help me to deal with stuff in my life. Now, understand that I come from a past where I was, I often ran. I had a grandfather who attempted to molest me as a child, and I would run from him, and he would chase me. And you think that doesn't do any damage to you. You kind of don't pay attention to it. You ignore it in life. You just go on through life. And here am I, as a disciple for many years, not understanding what's my problem that I have these challenges with inappropriate websites and the computer. And I couldn't put my finger on it, and that day was a turning point in my life when Wanda confronted me. As much as I wanted to deny it, I had to come clean and be honest and take ownership and say, yeah, this has been a battle. And in terms of it being a dark day, I thought it's a dark day because I was afraid I was going to lose my family. Oh, wow. And that's why it was a dark day, I thought, you know, this is it. I'm going to move out of the house.
Come on, Melvin.
And I won't come home to a family anymore. And Wanda's been amazing. She has been an amazing wife. She's really been on this journey with me. We'll share about that a little bit more in a minute. But that was a dark time in our lives, but it was really the best time.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys sharing and being so vulnerable and really being that light that's illuminated, that becomes a light. I love, Melvin, what you said when you said that was the best, best days of my life. And I think a lot of us, when you get stuff in our lives exposed, we hate that.
Sure. Yeah.
But you looked at that and you said, I love that. How did you guys, and how did you overcome? And you had sin, obviously, that was hidden for years.
Yeah.
You had developed patterns habitually where you became enslaved to this stuff, and I'm sure there's many of us here that understand that, being enslaved, and even those that are disciples, being enslaved habitually, where we're doing things that we know are wrong, we're hiding it, we're lying about it, we're denying it. How did you overcome that? You obviously, and I was there at that time in Milwaukee, my wife and I were leading the church, and we saw you rise to become a very influential and prominent member in the church, as he's now part of the core leadership in Milwaukee. But tell us, and you weren't even in leadership at the time then, but tell us how you guys overcame that, how you currently deal with these things.
Okay, so just to be clear, I have bad allergies. I'm a big baby. So anyways, that's a great question, Mark. So I had to make a decision in my life that, I didn't want to be a spectator anymore.
Right.
Come on, bro.
You know, a spectator is someone that goes to watch the game, right?
Yeah.
And the players are out there in the field playing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I said, this is I'm either all in or I can't be a pretender anymore.
Right. Right.
And I made a decision that I was going to really go after this with all of my heart, with all of my soul, with all of my mind, with all of my strength.
Yes.
That I was asked, I was doing horrible in my quiet times. And a brother said to me, Melvin, could you just pray consistently every single day and read your Bible every single day for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Just 10 minutes. Is that realistic for you? And I thought, yeah, I think I can do that, And I took the challenge because I wanted to build consistency and habit and discipline over quantity.
Right.
Okay? And I said, okay, so I started doing that, and then I started to develop this character of dailiness. Yeah. And then I started reading books. And Wanda said, I've never seen you read so many books in all my life. I was a horrible reader. I did horrible in school in reading, and I tell you, I love reading now. And I started reading my Bible every single day. Just studying and reading and becoming a student of the scriptures. Then I was asked if I could go to one of the purity conferences, and that was a big turning point for me too, because I realized that I'm not the only one in this battle. Yeah. And I know a lot of you guys know Tom Woolley, and he really played a big role in my life. He didn't even know me, but he was calling me every day. After the conference, he would call me in Milwaukee, and I would call him almost every week. We would talk on the phone, and that was amazing, for me. So I committed myself. I said, I'm doing this. And then it became a thing of, when I was asked to be in leadership, I was already being a leader. And it wasn't, Melvin, become a leader so that you can do these things. I was already doing those things. But I didn't know that. I was just doing it. And then I was asked to be a part of the zone leaders. I got to know Mark a little bit more. And we had been together for maybe a few years before we really started to connect. And that was awesome, taking the opportunity to raise up like that.
Great, great. So you made some decisions, you started to change your habits. One of the things that we talked about, and I remember, is that you started to have some different guardrails too.
Yeah.
What were, maybe if you just for 1 minute or two, you guys could share, what were some of the guardrails that you had in place to protect your sexual integrity, or as a Christian man, to make sure that we're not feeling like we're hypocrites all the time? Because I think, obviously, lust is a real temptation for most, if not all men. And so, rather than pretend that it's not there, what are some of the things that you did?
Come on.
Okay, so I think a lot of times, a lot of us look at guardrails as something bad. Like, we all want control of our lives. Like, no one's going to tell me what to do. No one's going to tell me what to see. No one's going to tell me when to do it and how to do it. I want to do what I want to do. And no one's going to tell me when, who, what, where, how, why. I am my own person. And that was a very prideful Melvin. That was a very selfish Melvin. So I had to create these guardrails, and all of us have guardrails, whether we realize it or not. Every day we are dealing with guardrails in our lives. First of all, our skin is considered the biggest organ in the body, and it's a guardrail against our organs. It protects our body, our internals. Every day we drive, we have guardrails. We have lights, we have stop signs. Imagine a society without that. You can go as fast as you want. The most dangerous intersection is the one with nothing there to control traffic.
Right.
And for me, I had to create guardrails. I had, no more going to the beach for me. I don't go anymore. That's just me. No more going to places that are going to trigger me, that are going to take my mind to places it shouldn't go. And the TV, there's certain shows I won't watch anymore. There's movies that we watched like 15 or 20 years ago. Oh yeah, let's watch it. It was a great movie. We turn it on and we're like, oh my gosh, turn this off, turn this off. We can't believe we seen that movie and we were okay with that. So we had to say, what, that's not. So now we screen every movie before we watch it. We don't just go ahead willy-nilly and just turn on a movie and start watching it because every other person or every other disciple watched it. No, for me and my household, I'm going to love the Lord and I'm going to protect my marriage. Any guardrails or anything that helped you?
Well, I think it's important to have the right people to have these difficult conversations with. Not everybody is at a place spiritually to really challenge us to take the next step forward. So I think having the right people were very key in our lives, as well as, we have covenant eyes. There's a lot of filtering, software, to filter out, as much as possible.
And covenant eyes, as you're referring to, is software that kind of filters inappropriate content in our computers and reports to others. I'm going to close out by asking you guys just one final question here, and I'll probably ask it to both of you, and that is, so Melvin, what advice would you have for some of the brothers or even sisters out here that maybe are stuck or feel like there's just something that there's no way they can be open about? It's just too shameful. They're locked in, and their life is, I got this thing and I'm hiding it. And I guess, what would you say to a person like that or people out?
So I think what we have to remember is this: that the enemy is not your brothers and sisters.
Come on now.
Right. Okay. A lot of times we don't want to be open with this person or that person. When I was told to start being a part of this purity group, you know what my response was? Oh no, they ain't married. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be hanging out with those guys. Those are single guys. I hang out with married guys. And then a few seconds later, I said to the brother, I said, hold on a minute, let me retract that. The Bible doesn't say to be open with married guys since you're married. No, we got to use wisdom, right? We have to be wise, but I made a decision that I was going to be open with these brothers and I was going to go after them. So a lot of times we think that we're the enemy, and we're not. We're here to encourage and inspire one another, edify each other, and build each other up. To really be good listeners to one another. To listen, to not be judgmental. Don't to the other person.
Right.
They don't need to hear that. You know, they don't need to hear, oh my gosh, what did you just say? You know, they need to hear, thank you for sharing that.
That's right.
I appreciate that. I'll be praying for you. Is there anything else I could pray for you about? You know? And that, I would encourage you guys to know that we have to be open. That, you know, it starts with baby steps, you know? You look at someone and say, hey, I want that. But you know what? To get that, it took a long time.
Yeah.
We see the final product.
Right.
But what we don't see is what it took to get there.
Right. And then Wanda, obviously you had your journey, and your journey is being, you know, married to Melvin, and the pain of, you know, the two are one, and seeing your marriage not where you thought it was and stuff. So what advice would you have for some of the sisters here and some of the wives whose maybe their husbands are going through a tough time?
Yeah. It has been quite the journey. It's been a lot of pain. It's been confusion, grief. And we all face pain and grief in many different ways. And I would say that sisters, first of all, we are God's daughters before we're even wives to our husbands. And when we're going through challenges, we need to separate, put their whatever issues we're going with them aside, and we need to make sure that as daughters of God that we're abiding by His word and following His commands and putting His word into practice. So, you know, my forgiveness is my forgiveness. You know, it's aside from whatever he's got going on, he's got to deal with his stuff. A lot of women are not, you know, pursuing being their spouse's helpers in this kind of journey because they don't want to deal with the reality of what that really means. But there's been more success for the husbands that have these battles when the wives are where they're supposed to be, next to their husbands.
That's right.
So please, sisters, you know, don't hide your husband's stuff, because there are sisters who have done that too. You know, you're creating more pain for yourselves if that's what's going on in your marriages or in your lives. But for me, walking with God on a regular basis and talking to the right sisters has really helped me to continue to be next to my husband's side. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We can be a light by being open.
Yeah.
That's how you can be like that which is illuminated becomes a light. Them being real becomes a light to the rest of us, does it not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Same chapter. Be careful in how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. Making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Don't be foolish. Understand what the Lord's will is, and I've got about 4 minutes here where I just want to close up. The second way you can be a light is by walking in wisdom. You can be a light by being open. Not just smiling everywhere you go. You can be a light by being open. That's probably not what we wanted to hear. But the other way you can be a light is by walking in wisdom. Melvin alluded to this idea of guardrails. This idea, now, a guardrail is something that we do to stop ourselves from falling off a cliff. The world tells you to spend your money, but when you spend to a point where you've got nothing, the world will laugh at you once you've fallen off that cliff. The world will tell you to drink alcohol and then act, but once you've ruined your life, even the world, even the guys that are like, woo, those guys will even recognize when you've fallen off it. Like, ooh, even the world recognizes when you've gone too far.
Sure.
When you've gone too far in your purity, and now you're an addict, and you've ruined your family, and you've ruined your children's lives, and now your children will become like you. They go, oh, that guy's gone too far. Even though they promote it, The world recognizes when you've drunk too much and you've ruined your education and you've ruined your relationships and you don't have any friends. And even the world who tells you, let's drink, will say, whoa, he's gone too far.
Right.
And even the world will tell you. And so, as a disciple, part of wisdom is to have a guardrail. A guardrail is something that if a car hits it, it does damage. But it's less damage than falling off. A guardrail is, there's a safe area and there's the dangerous area. You put the guardrail in the safe area, it wouldn't make sense to put it in the dangerous area, because by the time it would be too late. So you put it in an area, and it's kind of bothersome because it takes up some of your space.
Right.
It takes up some of your space, but that is, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, that's wisdom.
Yes.
It's the wisdom that says, you know what, I might miss out on some good TV shows, but I'm going to miss out on the ones that make me stumble. Because here's the thing, your worst regret could have been prevented if you had guardrails.
Right.
And that's the reality. The time where you hurt someone else the most, and when the deep shame you carry with yourself, let's be real, you don't have to, I'm not asking anyone to share it, just be honest with yourself. It could have been prevented if you had a guardrail. If you said, I'll never do this. But here's a question that Christians have to ask that the world will never ask. And that's the question is it wise? Is it wise? We ask, is it cool? Is it forbidden? Is it allowed? Is it trending? But we don't ask, is it wise?
That's right.
Should I be alone if I am trying to protect my sexual integrity? Should I be alone with a person that's not my wife all day? Well, is it allowed? It's legalistic, but is it wise? That's my question.
Come on, bro.
Is it wise? And that's why we have guardrails, right? That's why we have, and this is what it means to shine like the light. The world, they love to use this word legalistic. That's the trend word of anyone that is trying to poo-poo Christianity. But it's based on this proverb: the prudent see danger and take refuge, the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Okay, I put this before you. If you have guardrails, if you have things that stand up like a light. I know a teenager that said, I don't want a smartphone right now because I don't need the temptation.
Right.
Guess what? He might be less cool, but he's going to have less regrets. I don't know about you, but for me that stands out like a light.
Yeah.
But you don't need to be a teenager to make a decision like that. Right? You see danger and you go the other way. You don't go, oh, let's see how close I can get and not sin. Right? It says you go the other way. A simple or another person is saying, if somebody that's not that smart, well, they just keep going. And then they pay the penalty once they've gone too far. How do you shine like a light? I want to close up with this passage here.
Come on, Mark.
It's in Nehemiah chapter 6 and verse 3. This is the New American Standard Version. And I give you the context really quickly here. They're trying to rebuild a wall, and people are trying to distract them from doing it. And so he responds and he says, I sent messengers unto them saying, I'm doing a great work so that I can't come down. Why should the work cease whilst I leave it to come to you? In other words, he didn't want to be distracted from the great thing he was doing.
Right.
And so he focused on it. Guardrails are for people that are trying to do something great.
That's right.
If you don't understand guardrails, I want to just put this before you. Maybe it's because you've actually never done anything great in your life. Anyone that's trying to accomplish, get a master's degree, try to build a great friendship, try to create a great marriage. They narrow their lives. I've discipled athletes, professional athletes, NFL athletes. You know what they say? I can't eat that. I can't snowboard because I'm trying to be an NFL player. My weight has to be in this area. So this is what it's like in the life of a person that's trying to do something great. They live with narrow constraints.
That's right.
And we look at that and go, oh, that's so not cool. I'm like, that's how people that do something great live. I'm trying to build a great marriage. So for that, I'm working very hard to protect my righteousness and my purity. I just want a mediocre marriage. Okay, well, if you want something mediocre, then I get it. I get it. You wouldn't understand this phrase. He says, I can't be distracted from this because I'm trying to do something great. I don't have time for that and that and that. I'm doing something great. And so I'll close with this thought. What great work are you doing?
Come on, bro.
What are you doing that's great? What are you doing that's great that you don't care what your friends say? That you don't care what your neighbors, oh my God, yeah. I don't care when people look at my covenant eyes Because I'm trying to do something great.
Yeah.
I am. I'm trying to do something great in my family and in my marriage. And they're like, hey, do you have time for this? No, I get up early in my prayer time. I don't care if you poo-poo that because I'm trying to do something great. So what great work are you doing?
Yeah.
Have you ever done something great? Because if you haven't, I understand how this concept doesn't register. The concept of constraints and the concept of guardrails, that I'm going to live this way no matter what people say because I want to do something great. We're going to talk about living like a light. And it's not just putting on a fake smile and walking everywhere. It's going to challenge you to be a real light that compels people, and that's being open, and that's by living in wisdom. Let's pray.
Amen.
You are the light that shined in our lives. You know, without you, this world is just filled with endless darkness, and yet Jesus came and loved us in a way that shined light in our lives. Through Jesus, we have access to forgiveness and love, fellowship, Father, where people from all ages and races can come together. It's because of you. I pray that we can reflect that light. I pray that people here that are maybe perhaps battling just whether they can get open, will pull someone aside and just to get open with their lives so that your light can shine. I pray that we'll walk in wisdom and start asking, is it cool or is it free, or am I allowed to do this, or is this rebellious? But to ask, is this what's wise? And I pray that we'll be compelled by building something great, by building a great marriage, by being a great parent, by being a great single person, by being a great college student, by being a great high school student, we'll be compelled by your call to greatness. We love you, and we pray all this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Church, we're all dismissed. Parents, please pick up your children.